What's going on, guys? In today's video, we're going to be actually doing 4 camera comparison. Well, technically 2, because we're going to just be putting 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. Let me know in the comments below which camera is which. So one camera is going to be the Emeet S800. Another camera is going to be the Obsbot Tiny Lite 2. Another camera is going to be the S600 from Emeet. And another camera is going to be the Obsbot Meet 2, the brand new one that literally just came out not too long ago. Super small, super powerful. By the way, all cameras do 4K at 30 FPS, or you can do 1080 at even 60 FPS. Let me introduce you to all 4 cameras. Camera one right here is actually the Tiny 2 Lite from Obsbot. Camera 2 is actually the Emeet S800. Camera 3 is the Obsbot Meet 2, the new one I just talked about. And camera 4 right here is the S600 from Emeet itself. Without further ado, let's get into the video, break both these cameras down, and find out which one you should probably use. Obsbot is sponsoring this video, by the way, but I'm not being told to pick their cameras or anything like that. They're just telling me to literally do a side-by-side comparison and then let you guys and gals pick in the comments below. Appreciate you, Obsbot, for sponsoring the video. Now let's get into the video. Yo, future self here. So I totally forgot to mention Obsbot reached out and hooked my audience up with a coupon and extra discounts for you guys and gals. Right now, if you use this coupon code right here, you're going to get an extra 5% off already the discounted prices of the Tiny 2 Lite and the Meet 2. So you're going to get an additional 5% off. It's going to take it to 20 and then 25% off the cameras themselves. So if you want to get that discount code, you can use this on either the website or Amazon. It works both. I actually went and tested it out, just wanted to be curious to see, and it worked perfectly fine. So make sure you use this coupon code right here and check it out. Let's get back to the video. All right, guys, let's start with the size and comparison and just kind of overall look of the cameras themselves. Putting up the S600 next to the Meet 2 from Obsbot, well, you can see the difference on screen. There is just a huge bulky looking one and then a very, very small looking one. Not to say the bulky one looks bad or anything like that, but there are completely different size cameras. So depending on what you're going for and what you're looking for, that might just kind of be a game changer for you or a deal breaker for you. So just keep that in mind. And then going over to the S800 and the Tiny 2 Lite, it's pretty much the same. You know, the Tiny 2 Lite is definitely going to be a little bit bigger than the Meet 2, of course, but in size comparison, the S800 is just a bigger, bulkier looking camera, and the Obsbot Lite 2 is just, you know, smaller and stuff like that in comparison, and you can see those on screen and kind of make that judgment call for yourself. They do the same thing when it comes to mounting for the most part. All 4 camera has those quarter threads at the bottom of them so you can mount them. The Meet 2 does come with the magnetic plate, where the S600 just has the tilt on there as well. The tilt mount that's already built into it on a little swivel head, and you only have so far to turn it. So you kind of get the advantage with the Meet 2 being able to pretty much just mount the camera however you want on the magnet plate itself. And as well as the Obsbot Tiny Lite 2, it has the built-in plate on it as well, and it does have that quarter thread on it. So those are pretty much the same, but and again, you do have the gimbal on the Obsbot versus just a swivel head on the S800 itself. So let's talk about sensors for a second on the camera. So all 4 cameras pretty much have the 1/2-inch sensor. Now the Meet 2 has a 1/2-inch sensor. It does 4K 30 FPS, or it does 1080 60 FPS, as well as the Emeet S600. It has the 1/2-inch 0.5 sensor. I don't even know how you say it. They say it's a Sony sensor, and it's supposed to be just a slightly bigger than a 1/2-inch sensor. So you see it on screen how I put it there. But in any case, it also does the 4K 30 or 1080 60 FPS. S600 from Emeet and the Obsbot Tiny 2 Lite, they both have 1/2-inch sensors in them. The Emeet does throw out the Sony sensor that they have, but they both do the 4K 30 and the 1080 60, and you're seeing those on screen side by side. So you'll see if there's any difference in sensor and quality image or anything like that itself. As we're talking about sensors and everything else, let's go right into low light imagery on all four cameras, starting with the S600 and the Emeet 2 itself. You can see them on screen side by side, just a low light and how they compare to it and stuff like that, and as well as the S800 and the Tiny 2 Lite as well, so you can get an idea of how these perform in low light, because streamers just sometimes don't want to have a lot of lights around them. They're more like the RGBs and stuff behind them, and well, I understand. So let's talk about autofocusing on all four cameras for a second. The Emeet 2 and the S600 both have the PDAF autofocusing on them, which they're pretty good. You can kind of see on screen how they're reacting and stuff from me putting up different random items around that are literally just sitting around me as I record this. And then the S800 and the Tiny 2 Lite also have pretty good autofocusing. The S800 also has the TOF autofocusing as well as the PDAF autofocusing. So just take that in consideration. I mean, you're going to be able to tell on screen with me focusing and stuff, moving back and forth and everything, on how the focusing is on moving objects and stuff like that as well. So just keep that in mind. Let's move on to the next category. So we go on to something else that's Obsbot actually does have an upper hand on, which is going to be gestures. Now, anybody that's ever seen Obsbot or anything like this, you know, when they first came out with the cameras several years ago, the AI technology was for hand gestures and stuff, where you can zoom in, you can freeze, you can, you know, follow, do all the different hand gestures to do different things with the cameras and stuff, which made them pretty cool to be able to use, especially if you're like moving around streaming or doing video talking heads and stuff like that. Well, of course, they still have those features somewhat on their cameras. The Obsbot Tiny 2 Lite definitely has all those features still, to zoom in, the movement, to track you, etc., where the, you know, the Obsbot Emeet 2, it's not on a gimbal, so it's not going to be able to control and follow you and stuff like that, but you do have the zoom in features still, so you're able to still zoom in and stuff like that with the camera. Now, unfortunately, Emeet just doesn't have anything like this on their cameras at all, so you're just going to be like, you can zoom in and stuff, of course, but you'll have to do it through either their app or OBS or Streamlabs or whatever program you're using to stream with or record with, which you can do that with the Obsbots too, but again, you just have more control with the Obsbot when it comes to hand gestures and stuff like that. Let's talk about the apps side by side like we did the cameras, and just kind of give you an idea of how these work. Not a full breakdown, but just a quick overview of them both, and let you pick on which camera or which app you think is better. All right, guys, so we're going to look at the app right here for a second. You see it on screen. So this is the app. Not a whole lot to it. Well, actually there's a lot to it. We're not going to go through everything, but for this right here is for the Lite 2. As you can see here, you can come in here and you can set your tracking up and all that good stuff. You can set zoom tracking up if you want to, or not have zoom tracking on. It doesn't matter. You can do a close up if you want to. So that means anytime I back up, it's going to stay close up, and it's always going to zoom in and out wherever you need to be. Headless, if you want to be headless, you can. It's up to you. It's kind of weird, but we're here for it. Anyhow, you have other things here to desk mode, whiteboard, hand, all that. That's on the Obsbot Tiny 2. Same exact thing for this. I did a whole video on the Obsbot Tiny 2. I'll link it at the end of the video if you want to see everything in and out. There are some new things in here, but for the most part, it's all the same. You can do your gimbal gestures here too, or you can move your gimbal by yourself if you want to. That's completely up to you. You can do your zoom over here as well if you want to. No problems there. You can... We're going to do a wide shot here. We don't want to be zoomed in too much. So here's the second page. You do have HDR on the 3 out of 4 cameras. The S600 does not have HDR, by the way. Just want to throw that out there. The S800, the Emeet 2, and the Lite 2 all have HDR. You do have autofocusing here. Of course, we went over that. You can mess with your auto exposure. Now, I always turn it off and set it up myself, but if you want to, you can set it to, you know, be auto, but I always think I'm a little overexposed. You can kind of see the side of my face here and stuff like that. So I like to turn it off and just kind of mess with it how it is. All the same things here. You can do all that. Okay. So from here, you can come over here. Again, you do have all your gestures here for your camera and stuff like that. So lock, zoom, dynamic. You can turn those on and off if you want to, which is pretty nice to see. And you have other options down here you can mess with too, firmware update, all that. All right, so if you click on this button right here, this is going to be for your beauty, and you click on that. All right, guys, so from here, you can touch up your face and stuff. So what you'll have to do to use this feature is literally actually come up here, and you would need to turn on the virtual camera and then go into OBS and set it up like so. We're not gonna do that in this video, but just know you have so many different things you can do from here, all this good stuff here and everything else on both cameras. And you have this bouquet, which is pretty much just background blur, is what we call it. You can also do that here, but you can also do that in OBS and Streamlabs and all that as well if you want to. And you can click on what camera it is and you'll be good to go. You can do it to either camera. So just FYI there. Okay, so from here, you can come over here, and when you click on your settings, like right here, this pops up right here. And from here, you can actually see your output and everything else. This is something else that Emeet just don't have on their app itself, is that itself. So it's kind of like, I wish they would add that in there, to be 100% honest with you, to be able to switch between this if we want to. You can see all the different things right here, which is nice to see. So what's cool about these cameras themselves is what you can see, you got landscape here. You can change it to portrait mode, but actually when you rotate the cameras in the software themselves, they actually turn to portrait mode automatically, as you can see here, which is pretty cool to see, which means it's going to make it easy to make content for, you know, things like TikTok. Twitch is about to do vertical streams and stuff like that, so you'll be able to use that. And if you want to, when you mount it to where you can just flip it back over to the side and go back to full screen like this for 16:9. So you can switch between 19:16 and 16:9. All right, so this is the Emeet 2 I'm pointing at right now. It's the same thing. You can rotate it vertically and get an automatic vertical mode, and you rotate it back, it'll automatically switch back to horizontal mode, which is super sweet to see on these cameras themselves. And I'll show you real quick that actually, unfortunately, Emeet just doesn't have any kind of software like this yet. Anyways, maybe they'll come out with some. So here's the S600 right here. I rotate it. Unfortunately, as you can tell, it is not going to rotate. And I'll show you the S800 right now. Here's the S800. I'm going to rotate it sideways as well. And as you can see, it's just going to stay in this. So that's a little bit of a, you know, downfall, if you want to call it a downfall or not. And then from here, we're just going to look at the camera for the Emeet, the software for the Emeet as well. They do have a software. I'll be honest about this part for sure. In my personal opinion, Emeet is pretty outdated when it comes to this. I mentioned this in my full review on the two cameras that I talked about in this video too. I'll link those two cameras as well at the end of the video if you want to check them out. But the camera itself, the app itself, and then the S600, you can come in here and check it out. But we're going to S800 because there's more features on this camera since it's a newer camera. There's not even, everything's not unlocked for the S600 in the app, which is kind of a bummer, but it's okay. But from here, you can kind of just see it's very, very basic. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. You can kind of see what you got here, focusing, you got metering mode, all that good stuff. You can kind of get, you know, all the things you want to do here as well, framing grid and all that, anti-flicker. I mean, it's pretty much all the same. You just not as much stuff, of course, but that's to be expected since you are talking about two different style cameras, even with AI versus non-AR and everything else. You do have settings and stuff over here. You kind of go in, software update and everything, but this is like a super simple basic settings. Over here, you can turn a microphone, all that, you know, the mics that are on here and stuff. Preview for previewing the camera itself. I think I can turn that on. Nope, I haven't using it. You can't have two sources on at the same time. Since I'm using it on Streamlabs, I can't turn it on. I think I'm not gonna do all that. Anyhow, yeah, so you can update and all that stuff here. So it's super simple. You got your cameras up here. I can switch between the S600 and the S800 if I want to, and you can just see the settings for the S800 or the S600 that are right here. You can kind of tell just from going from one to the other. There's several different things missing here. Not too bad or anything like that, but in any case, those are both of the software. Just super simple, quick overviews of the software themselves. Let's get back to the video. So the last thing I want to talk about these cameras and stuff is how do they perform with YouTube videos or making full, like, long form content and stuff. Well, I've actually been using the Tiny 2 Lite this entire time. This is what you see right here, and it does look pretty good in my personal opinion. And let me know in the comments below what your favorite camera is, and if you want to pick any of these cameras up, make sure you check out the description below. There'll be coupon codes and stuff like that as well. And I'll see you guys and gals in the next video. As always, peace and love.